The house had nothing unusual about it. Built in the late 1970s, it sat on a quiet street where nothing ever really happened. Daniel moved in alone after divorce, looking for a place that felt neutral. Not sad, not happy, just functional. His days followed a predictable rhythm. He woke early, made coffee, left for work, and returned at night when the streetlights were already on. The house greeted him with the same silence every evening. Furniture exactly where he had left it. Shoes by the door. Keys on the small wooden table in the hallway. Daniel liked that kind of order. It made the place feel manageable. He cooked simple meals, washed dishes immediately, and turned off all the lights before going to bed. Before sleeping, he usually walked through the rooms, more out of habit than caution, checking windows and doors. Nothing ever seemed out of place. The first nights passed without incident. The house remained still, almost indifferent to his presence. Daniel slept deeply, the kind of sleep that comes from exhaustion rather than comfort. And when he woke each morning, everything appeared exactly as it should be. At least, that's what he believed at the time. The first sign was easy to dismiss. Daniel noticed it on a Tuesday morning while putting on his shoes. One of them wasn't by the door. It was a few steps away, closer to the living room. He stood there for a moment, trying to remember if he'd kicked it aside the night before. He hadn't been drinking. He wasn't tired enough to forget something that small. Still, he shrugged and moved on. Over the next days, similar things happened. The kitchen chair he always pushed under the table was slightly turned when he came home. The bathroom towel, which he folded carefully, hung crooked, as if someone had grabbed it in a hurry. Each detail on its own felt insignificant. Together, they created a faint irritation he couldn't quite name. Daniel began paying more attention to his routines. He made a point of noticing where he placed objects. Keys flat on the table, handle pointing left. Remote control centered on the couch cushion. Bedroom door closed, never halfway. He told himself this was practical, not obsessive. One night, he woke up briefly around 3 a.m. No noise, no movement, just a sense of having surfaced from a dream too quickly. He lay still listening. The house responded with silence. In the morning, he found the remote control on the floor. Not fallen, placed parallel to the couch. That bothered him more than he expected. He checked the locks. All secure. Windows closed. No sign of forced entry. The house showed no evidence of intrusion, only rearrangement. Subtle, careful, almost polite. Daniel stopped inviting people over, afraid someone would suggest the obvious explanations he was trying to avoid. Stress, sleepwalking, forgetfulness. He considered installing cameras, but decided against it. Watching the house at night felt like crossing a line. Instead, he started taking mental notes. Every night before bed, he walked through the room slowly, memorizing positions. Every morning, he checked them. The changes continued. Never dramatic, never chaotic, just enough to suggest intention. And intention, Daniel knew, was the most unsettling. As the weeks passed, the changes grew more consistent, not larger, but more frequent. Daniel no longer wondered if something would be different in the morning. He wondered what. That expectation alone began to weigh on him. He started sleeping lightly. Every sound pulled him halfway awake. The refrigerator clicking on, pipes shifting, the wind brushing against the house. Still, he never heard footsteps, never doors. The nights remained intact, undisturbed, as if the house respected his sleep. The objects followed a pattern he couldn't define. Books moved from one shelf to another, always upright, never stacked incorrectly. The fruit bowl shifted positions on the counter, rotating slightly, like it had been adjusted for symmetry. Once, he found all the picture frames in the living room angled a few degrees inward. Not crooked, intentional. Daniel tested the house. One night, he placed a mug on the kitchen table, deliberately close to the edge. In the morning, it stood safely centered. Another night, he left a drawer half open. When he woke, it was fully closed. The house corrected him. That was the thought he tried not to follow. He searched the attic and the crawl space beneath the floor. Nothing. No signs of someone hiding. No disturbed dust. No footprints. The house revealed nothing but its own age. Old wood, dry insulation, the quiet smell of time. At work, Daniel caught himself zoning out, replaying floor plans in his head, counting rooms, measuring distances. The house had no blind spots, no easy way to move unseen. And yet, something did. One evening, he returned home earlier than usual. The street was empty. The house stood exactly as he had left it. Inside, everything was normal, almost disappointing. That night, he dreamed of standing in the hallway, watching objects slide into place without hands. They moved slowly, patiently, as if waiting for his approval. He woke before they finished. In the morning, the bedroom chair faced the bed. He was certain it hadn't before. Daniel didn't move it back right away. He stood there longer than necessary, trying to decide whether the house was responding to him or preparing him. Daniel stopped correcting the house. At first, this decision felt passive, almost reasonable. He told himself he was tired of fighting small things. But soon, the stillness that followed became heavier than the changes themselves. The house continued adjusting objects, but now with more confidence. Shoes aligned perfectly by the door. Pillows centered with exact spacing. The kitchen table cleared of anything he left behind, as if clutter was no longer tolerated. It wasn't aggressive. It was instructional. Daniel began to feel observed, not watched in the usual sense, but accounted for, as if the house noticed patterns he didn't. When he skipped dinner, the chair remained pushed in. When he worked late, the hallway light stayed on until morning. These details had explanations. He knew that, and yet they accumulated in ways explanations couldn't fully reach. He tested the boundary one last time. Before bed, he turned the picture frame face down. It was a quiet rebellion, almost childish. In the morning, the frame stood upright again. The photo inside had been replaced. Not removed, replaced. It was an older picture of him, one he didn't remember framing. The glass was clean. No fingerprints. Daniel felt something shift then. Not fear exactly. A kind of pressure. The sense of being gently steered. He stopped sleeping in the bedroom. The chair still faced the bed every morning. He slept on the couch instead. The blankets were folded neatly beside him when he woke. Always beside. Never over him. Time lost its edges. Days blurred. He started narrating his actions out loud, softly, as if announcing them helped fix them in place. When he forgot to do it, the house seemed quicker to respond. One night, standing in the hallway, Daniel realized he no longer remembered how the house looked when nothing moved. The original order had faded. What remained was this new version. Precise, calm, waiting. And for the first time, Daniel wondered if the house was no longer changing around him. But for him, Daniel found a notebook in a drawer he was certain he had never used. It was thin, unmarked, placed beneath old manuals and loose screws. He didn't remember buying it. The pages were filled. At first, the handwriting looked like his. Same slant, same pressure on certain letters. But the tone was unfamiliar. The notes weren't dated. They described routines, corrections, observations about balance and placement. The chair should not block the bed. Objects near edges invite accidents. Disorder increases anxiety. Anxiety leads to mistakes. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, reading slowly. Some entries refer to changes he clearly remembered noticing for the first time. Others described adjustments that had happened before he ever became aware of them. Near the end, the writing grew more confident, less explanatory, almost instructional. The house responds better when allowed to finish. Resistance causes delays. He checked the final page. There was only one sentence. Eventually, he will stop remembering what was his idea. Daniel closed the notebook and left it exactly where he'd found it. That night, the house was quieter than usual. No corrections. No movements he could detect. The silence felt deliberate. When he woke up, the notebook was on the kitchen table, centered, aligned with the edge. He didn't open it again. For the rest of the day, Daniel moved carefully, deliberately, placing objects where they seemed to belong rather than where he wanted them. The house remained still, approvingly so. By evening, he realized something unsettling. He no longer felt the need to check whether things had moved. The order felt complete, and for the first time since moving in, Daniel wondered whether the house had ever changed on its own, or if it had simply been reminding him of something he had already started. That night, Daniel left the lights on. Not all of them, just enough to soften the edges of the rooms. He sat on the couch without turning on the television, listening to the quiet hum of the house settling around him. Nothing moved. He waited for familiar discomfort, the urge to stand and check positions, but it never came. The stillness felt earned, maintained, like a held breath that no longer needed effort. Before sleeping, Daniel stood in the hallway one last time. He tried to remember when the house at first felt unfamiliar. The memory wouldn't settle. Every version of the space in his mind looked the same. Ordered, calm, precise, correct. In the bedroom, the chair faced the bed. He considered turning it back. The thought passed without action. Some things didn't need to be tested anymore. He lay down and closed his eyes. Sleep came quickly, deeper than it had in months. In the early morning, the house adjusted one final detail. Nothing obvious. Nothing you would have noticed before. When Daniel woke up, he felt rested. Clear. He walked through the rooms, confident in each step, placing his hand on walls he knew by instinct. Everything was where it belonged. He paused by the front door, keys already in hand, perfectly aligned without conscious effort. For a moment he hesitated, struck by a quiet thought he couldn't fully form. Something about change, about movement, about nights. Then the feeling faded. The house remained still behind him as he left, and it stayed that way all day, patiently holding its order, certain he would return, and continue exactly where he had stopped. Daniel's journey into the house's peculiar order reveals a chilling truth. Sometimes control isn't seized, but subtly, patiently instilled. He found peace in conformity, but at what cost his own will? This tale explores the unsettling power of routine and the quiet surrender to an unseen influence. If the psychological thriller resonated with you, making you question the unseen forces in your own life, please give this video a like to support our work. And for more thought-provoking narratives that delve into the mysteries of the human mind and the spaces we inhabit, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next story. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Would you resist, or would you, like Daniel, eventually find comfort in the house's perfect order?